Welcome to the AI Think Tank podcast, the future of intelligent systems, machine learning, and data science. I'm Dan Wilson, coming to you from Seattle, Washington. Today, our guest is a true media visionary, Larry Namer. As the co-founder of E-Entertainment Television, he revolutionized the way audiences engage with entertainment news. Beyond that, he has built a global media empire, including Mitan Global Entertainment Group, which brought Western-style entertainment to China. His expertise spans digital content, AI-driven storytelling, and global media innovation. Larry also serves on the board of Kwai, a nonprofit dedicated to democratizing AI, a mission I proudly support as a sponsor. Today, we'll explore the intersection of AI, media, and the future of digital storytelling. Welcome to the show, Larry. How's it going?
Oh, all good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a lot to discuss here, and you just put out your new book, Offscript, which is super exciting to read and very inspirational for me in my upbringing as well. And your involvement across many areas of entertainment have provided you with a perspective that not many people get, especially with reaching audiences around the world in various countries where normal American media never reaches. And to top it off, we have AI in the mix now. We have different opportunities and different forms of syndication in which to actually broadcast. And so a lot's changed, but you've been a big part of making things the way they have come today and making things possible. So it's incredible to have you on. So let's start by letting everybody know how you came up into this. You started in Coney Island. Okay, and where you grew up, correct?
I did, yeah. And Coney Island is still the hood. It's not trendy Brooklyn yet.
Yeah, exactly. So you're actually in California now, though. This is where you live most of the year, right?
I'm in LA,
Wow.
LA, New York, and Beijing, actually.
So what's going on right now with where you're headed next? What's next on the menu for you?
Well, I mean, we still have this, rather large operation going on in China. We do TV, film, branded content.
Uh-huh.
We consult on some AI projects, and we do a lot of live events. We are doing the Harlem Globetrotters in China. We're bringing Shrek the musical there. We do a lot of immersive stuff. We buy up the rights to immersive presentations like immersive Van Gogh and immersive Klimt
Hmm.
and 100 Years of Disney. So China's still continuing going well.
Hmm.
But then with COVID, I started doing stuff here in the U.S. again. Because the restrictions on the quarantine was quite dramatic in China. They wanted you to quarantine for 3 weeks in a Chinese hotel, and I wasn't
Hmm.
about to do that.
Yeah.
So started doing stuff here in the U.S. again. Been developing some series. We have, developed stuff for some of the streaming services,
Hmm.
Netflix, Amazon, Paramount Plus, and Hulu, and those folks, and then jumped into the podcast world
Hmm.
about a few months ago, and really it's a more of a favor to a bunch of gal friends I have here in Los Angeles.
Hmm.
So we created this thing called Stall Talk, which is really it's a women's empowerment thing.
Hmm.
It's you know celebrates that camaraderie I think women have among each other that
Hmm.
guys don't necessarily understand or
Absolutely.
share.
Right.
And then we've got another podcast coming up next month, which is about health, wellness, and spirituality, again geared to women.
Uh-huh.
We have another one called Boba Therapy, which is geared at young Asians in America,
Hmm.
and so that's the podcast stuff we're doing, and then we have a late night talk show that's going on called Natasha After Dark.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Uh-huh.
the lawyers are doing the paperwork now, so I'm not allowed to say what network it's on. But if you look around, there's no women in late night television
Right.
in this country, and we found a great gal, Natasha Graziano. 8 years ago, was a homeless mom on the streets of London. Cut to 8 years later, she's living in Bel Air and life coaching will.i.am and Steve Aoki, and got 20 million social media followers. And I think she's now been named the number one motivational speaker for women under 40 in this country. And um, so doing a late night talk show that's not promotional, so it's not so Tom Cruise, tell me about your next movie. It's
Hmm.
really
Right.
it's motivational, inspirational.
Hmm. That's fantastic. It's long overdue too, and it's a really good point. And I applaud your efforts with this. I actually have been following Stall
I'll
Talk
talk
since you
to
brought it up a long time ago. So
Yeah.
it's great. And with everything going on, I mean, you stay so busy. Um, I don't know how you have time for what you do with our our board where I'm at. So it's incredible. I have to thank you for taking the time to do that because your
Okay.
guidance is irreplaceable and so necessary in this world to navigate. You know what's new, what we're pioneering, and what we can make possible. So
Yep.
that's amazing. So let's back it up. Let's back it way up to you're not only involved with all these things, but you were a part of the birth of modern cable television networks in America. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was. Um, E is still the only, excuse me, is the only TV network that has been started by regular people as opposed to media companies, big media
Hmm.
companies. And even to this day, it's still the only one out there. It's in 100 right now. It's in 142 countries, and arguably the biggest influencer of pop culture in the world. I mean,
Hmm.
it's just,
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, all you got to do is look at the Kardashians and you got to know how important he has been in pop culture.
Yeah. You had everything to do with Howard Stern as well.
Yeah, we put Howard on on national television, and and at first when we came up with the idea of putting cameras in his radio studio, everybody laughed and said, "Oh, radio's been dead for 40 years. What are you thinking?" And people didn't realize, in our eyes, it was basically a sitcom. It was an ensemble comedy.
Hmm.
There was an old show in the United States called WKRP in Cincinnati,
Oh yeah, I grew up with
and
that. Yeah.
when we saw Howard's show, we said, "This is the reality version of KRP in Cincinnati." I mean, so
Hmm.
for us, it was a natural, but everybody was like, you can't do that. Radio's boring. Nobody will ever watch. And obviously,
Hmm.
Howard went on to do pretty well.
Once that came to fruition, what did you move on to next?
Well, no, we started the first real traditional format show we ever did was Talk Soup. And again, everybody made fun of us for that one. We said, we want to do a TV show that makes fun of TV shows, and everybody said
Hmm.
you can't do that. But Talk Soup ran 26 years and made the careers of dozens of people. From Greg Kinnear to uh, Henson and Aisha Taylor. They all came off of that show. And but I always looked at Hollywood celebrities, Hollywood gossip as being a global topic, not just the U.S. topic.
Hmm.
So I really started focusing on building the international markets. I mean, in its first year, we were in 14 different countries.
Hmm.
And, it was just kind of unheard of back then. And, now 142 countries. But then at some point, I did a favor to a lawyer, a friend in town who had some clients that were in merchant banking, and somebody proposed an entertainment deal in Russia for them. And the lawyer friend said, "Larry, would you go to Russia and tell me if you think this is a real deal?" And I was like, "Wow, yeah, I'll go to Russia. That's cool." And so I kind of went off there and I met the mayor of St. Petersburg. And it was just when everything was beginning to change there.
Yeah.
Um, and the mayor said, "Could you help me start a music festival so we could raise money for the Children's Hospital and the orphanage?" And um, we did that. We started this thing called the White Nights Festival,
Hmm.
and we would raise over 6 days 100% of the budget for the hospital and the
Wow.
orphanage. And yeah, we would draw over 6 days about 750,000 people. Uh, all major acts from
Hmm.
David Bowie uh,
Wow.
to Ringo Starr to Paul
Uh
McCartney.
huh.
Um, and then, so while I was there, somebody said, "Hey, why don't you do some TV shows with us?" And I'm like, "Okay, as long as I'm here, why not?" So we actually had a long running TV show there. not under E banner, but um, separately. I had a TV show there, a soap opera that ran actually for 11 years,
Mm-hmm.
5 days a week. It was incredibly popular. And then, when I divested from E, we sold E to Comcast, and I was looking for a challenge. So we went off and we started doing stuff in China. Um, uh, the music festival we did in Russia was I would always work with the vice mayor of St. Petersburg
Mm-hmm.
because he was the guy who had actually got us the generator trucks and built the stages and all that. Well, the vice mayor was a guy named Vladimir Putin,
Wow.
and and when he ended up, going up the ladder and into the Kremlin, I actually worked with his minister of communications to help rewrite regulatory policy for the media world. Um, yeah, because up until then, everything was if you knew the right guy in the Communist Party, you did whatever you
Mm-hmm.
want. Now they're trying to build a consumer economy, so you had to make everything look a little bit familiar to Western marketers because that's what
Yeah.
people are going to want to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that for them. I worked with the Minister of Communications there. And then when the Chinese realized that they had to do media reform too, they went to the Russians. Russians sent them to me. Um, so I went off to China and I did that, and then was working with young TV executives, teaching them the you know creativity for profit. Um, and then they said, "Why don't you start a media company here?" And I said, "Well, you don't let Western media companies in here." And they went, "Well, we don't let the ones we don't like." And I said, "Okay, why are you going to be so nice to me?" And they
Yeah.
said, it's really simple. We have a fight with Rupert Murdoch. It's the front page of the Wall Street Journal. We have a fight with you. We go out for drinks. We scream and yell for a night, but the next day we're okay.
Yeah.
They said that's the way we'd rather do it for now. And so we've been, in China, literally doing every kind of media possible there. And and then like I said, with COVID, I kind of started doing stuff in the U.S. again because I
Mm-hmm.
decided that I am never going to be good at golf, so I'm not going to go that direction. So, been staying busy.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's incredible, and to be really welcomed into doing that there is unheard of. And to be that well accepted is it's so amazing. Wow, you really got around before getting there too. So yeah, you said 140 countries you guys were actually able to reach with E. Is that right? Like,
142. Yeah.
wow. Okay, that just keeps growing. I love it. Yeah. So let's see. Now, back in the beginning of E, I remember. Let's say it was Alan that you really got with your friend Alan, and you started getting these ideas together. Could you tell us more about how E almost didn't happen and how it did happen at the
Sure.
beginning?
Alan's my friend from New Jersey,
Yeah.
and I was working. I moved from New York to LA to build the LA cable system.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they insisted that everything go underground when they issued the franchise, and I was the director of operations in Manhattan, and everything had to go underground. So,
Mm-hmm.
here I am. 30 years old. I'm the only person around who knows how you build underground cable systems. So I got recruited to come out and build that. Which I did. But then the company that I worked for, which is a Canadian company, sold out and they moved back to Toronto. And
Mm.
I said, whoa, 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 I didn't go from New York to LA to go to Toronto. I said, I'm not
Yeah.
doing that. So
Uh-huh.
Alan and I just kept fooling around. So let's come up with some concepts for, businesses to keep us both in LA because we both loved it. And we came up with this idea, MTV of the movies. At the early days of cable, MTV was there and it showed music videos. And they would stand a host in front of a green screen and go, and Madonna has a new video. We
Mm-hmm.
said, well, we could get movie trailers from the studio and stand a host in front of a green screen and go, and Schwarzenegger has a new movie.
Yeah.
Um, so we wrote a business plan. We thought we were brilliant. Nobody would give us any money.
Mm-hmm.
They were going, you're not Rupert Murdoch, you're not Time Warner, we're not, people don't start TV networks. It's not possible. We're not going to give you
Mm-hmm.
10 cents. And it took us about 3.5 years before we finally found somebody on Wall Street who was willing to give us a little money. At that time, the going rate to start a TV network somewhere between 60 and $100 million.
Hmm.
And we found a guy on Wall Street who said, I love this, I want to do it, but I'm only allowed to sign for two and a half. And
Yeah.
we were like, what are we going to do with $2.5 million? I mean, the minimum is 60, and we'd really like 100. And but then finally we said, you know what? Great, we'll do it for two. We'll take the two and a half. And I had a friend who was teaching radio, television, film at University of Texas in Austin, and I called him up and said, "Hey, Brian, do you have a bunch of kids that need intern jobs here in LA?" And he said, "Yeah, we had trouble placing kids this year." So he sent us 31 interns. So what people don't realize, because he is 142 countries, valuations up around 7 billion now. Um, is he started with 11 employees and 31 interns.
Yeah, that's a way to build up.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of risks for people to take too. I mean, along the way, you're trying something that's really never been done, and this is where it hurts. That's the pinch of having great ideas and they're not having funding or the support, because a lot of people will like ideas all day long until you have to execute. And then it's like, well, things aren't quite like that, and it needs to go a
Yeah.
different way or what have you. But it's a fight, in that kind of world, especially when everything else is so much bigger and there's only a few networks out there. I mean, this is, what we have like three channels back in the day, four channels back in the day. You'd have to manually, do everything for. And I know growing up with my grandparents who were also in old Hollywood, I think in the past, you and I have talked about how I had my grandfather was one of the Little Rascals.
Yeah.
It was Butch's gang, and they did that from the ground up too, like him and his buddies had a paper route. This is Hollywood, California. Hollywood Boulevard was a dirt road, and his buddies, they had a paper route, and they put their money together and they bought this old Studebaker car. It had no engine in it and it had the floorboard cut out. So they would get in it and walk it along. There was like four or five of them, right? So they're walking it along Hollywood Boulevard, and maybe this is where the Flintstones got it. I don't know. But this talent scout saw them and said, "Hey, I'd like to use this in pictures." And as it was told to me, they put their heads together and they said, "Well, you can't use it without us, see?" And that's Butch's gang with our gang comedies. And so they in the show they had a donkey that would pull this car around, and that was their car from the paper route. And so I learned a lot about coming up from nothing from the people that raised me and in entertainment because
Yep.
that whole family was involved. That whole side of my family was really involved in every way they could be. From pageants. You remember when they would parade kids around the street and stuff back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Papa was a model for Sears and Roebuck, but he also got to work with Mickey Rooney and a lot of other people in different movies like Boys Town. And then his half sister was with Cary Grant and Abbott and Costello. His mom made costumes for Judy Garland and Lucille Ball and Shirley Temple. So that whole side of my family, and they raised me quite a bit. So here I am in entertainment still, and I
Yeah.
performed my whole life too in a variety of media. So, but it really hit me when I started reading your story, and then just hearing you talk in our meetings, in the last few weeks about how you got where you got, and it's just if you either have that passion in you to just keep going, and I know that's what you have, or you're at the whim of the rest of the world and just hope, that you can get something out or come close to your dream. But that always, my upbringing always stuck with me. And then meeting you, I thought, wow, we're so blessed to have you on our board. In this new wave of entertainment that's
Yeah.
coming out, we need a pioneering mind. We need someone with a hearty spirit for this and knows, hey, it doesn't always work the first time. You've got to try again this way and this way and this way and keep going. And now you're wildly successful, leading the way, doing things in other countries that most media companies would dream of. And you've been there for the longest too. So it's an outstanding inspiration, to hear you talk about these things. And so let's see. You also what are the most popular types of shows in China, for example, and other countries? What's really doing it? You think? I know that their moviegoers are outdo American moviegoers by a large
Yeah.
quantity. They really, and they have such great, fantastic movies. And I remember watching a lot of subtitled movies back in the day and just really absorbing a lot of their fantasy and culture. So what's really popular right now?
Well, I
Sure.
mean, it's interesting in China. There are about 700 million people who watch video content on their cell phone.
Mm.
Um, so you have to produce very differently. I mean, realizing people are
Ah.
going to watch it on that very small screen as opposed to,
Hmm.
the 50-inch TV sets. But dramas, drama series, the big Shogun kind of
Oh
series are
yeah.
incredibly popular in China. I mean, that's a mainstay of Chinese television. Rom-coms are big.
Mm.
Um, and so we do those kind of things in China, and everything we do in China is in Mandarin. We don't do stuff in English and then pretend that we're going to subtitle
Right.
it or dub it
Hmm.
or anything there. So traditional kind of, let's call it, long form content works really well there. Don't forget that China's been the birthplace of TikTok.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so short form, we do a lot of short form there.
Hmm.
We actually work with ByteDance, who's the parent company
Oh, okay.
of TikTok, and so we do that. Immersive interactive entertainment is
Hmm.
very big there. I mean, we've had in this country immersive Van Gogh and immersive Klimt, and so we buy up the rights for those. We don't create them, but we
Okay.
buy the rights and present them all throughout China. Um,
Mm.
we actually just did a deal to bring Shrek the musical there, which is a live performance, kind of thing, and
Hmm.
Harlem Globetrotters and
Oh
things
yeah.
like that. So they're
Hmm.
they're massive consumers of entertainment and stuff. And people don't realize that there are 400 million people in China who
Hmm.
would be considered middle class in this country. So there's while percentage wise it's only a quarter of the people that live in China,
Hmm.
or a third. It's still bigger than the United States as a market of people who have money to spend on entertainment. So. Literally everything you could do anywhere you could do there. I mean, we're doing a lot of AI there and
Hmm.
um, playing with holograms, and it's actually
Ah.
easier to play with new technology there
Oh.
than it is here because here we have all media is owned by the big public companies, so everybody's looking at making sure the quarterlies look good, so they're not
Oh yeah.
investing in things. In China, it's different. I mean, it's been wide open. There's no technology
Mm.
legacies there, so you can kind of bring new stuff in and out of the market quicker than you actually can do here in America. Doing
Sure.
AR, VR, all kinds
Gotcha.
of things. What people don't realize about China, which is kind of the most interesting, is the extended family.
Mm.
Um, here in the U.S., it's rare that kids even know who their grandparents are or have any kind of relationship, which they typically don't live in the same city or,
Hmm.
they go off to college and that, relationship ends. In China, it's very different. I
Yeah.
mean, you have, number one, you've had the one child policy for quite a while. And so everybody's used to having one kid. But then you also have early retirement there. So people retire at the latest at 60, but women retire at 55. So you have mother and father have one kid and they go to work. And then you have two sets of grandparents that are retired that are taking care of the kid. So you basically have six adults
Mm.
taking care of one kid, not just financially, but emotionally.
Yeah, that's
Um,
amazing.
so it's very, very different
Hmm.
there. And anything that helps the kid's education, the Chinese, again, six adults financing one kid's education, totally different than what it is here. And so when you create stuff, like I say, we do a lot of, King Tut and Titanic and all
Hmm.
these kind of museum exhibitions and stuff. And Chinese people have no problem, even if they're not very rich, going to take the kids to see that kind of stuff. So we do a
Hmm.
lot of that there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's really well done. Yeah, it's an amazing difference. So, what about any kind of like, how does this bridge over into any kind of theme park type of activity?
Yeah, we've helped some people who wanted to build things, basically license IP from Western companies to you create rides and theme park experiences and stuff. So we don't operate them ourselves, but we
Mm.
consult to the companies that operate them and want to acquire Western IP.
are you seeing any types of AI being used in a way that's more than just, computer effects, randomness, and what have you? Anything?
Well, yeah, I think, if you look at China as a whole, the use of AI literally for your daily life through, the online services or the apps or whatever you want to call them. Uh, I mean, you could do much more in China. You join or you take on one app and it literally does your schedules, pays your bills, and and all of that stuff. Does schedules your appointments, and all of that stuff is AI based.
Hmm.
So much greater use of integrating AI into everyday life activities, not
Yeah.
just media and entertainment. Just literally, your life runs on, having an AI assistant.
Hmm. Right.
Who, order me lunch, and it
Hmm.
tells you, what you should be ordering that you haven't had in a while and pays for it with your cards and records it, sends it to your bookkeeper and, do
Hmm.
all of that stuff. I mean, it's much more automated. It automates
Yeah.
your life there.
Yeah. That sounds like they're a little further ahead than a lot of places, honestly. Because yeah, we're getting to that here, and I know that at Quai we've been pushing to help make this more democratized, make data more sovereign, and have provenance from where it comes from for individuals to really own their data
Yeah.
and not give that up to a few major players. It's just people worry about things in one way and then they don't realize what they're giving up in another. And it's like when DeepSeek came out and released its new R1
Yeah.
release, and then everybody just started getting the app. And then over in Singapore, they had a very hard time, supporting that many users, and the API was really flaky because so many people used it, and a lot of people in America who didn't know better were like, "Hey, you're giving all of your data to this state system. You're giving your information to the Chinese government." But there's really not a huge difference in giving it to corporations and other governments as well. So, in what we're aiming to build more succinctly with, sovereignty would be something that we can all own and manage ourselves in a way that's not reliant on other infrastructure as well, not reliant on having to pay a ton of money to some other company when you could have something that's more communal and open source that's for the people, more of a municipal resource in a way, but
Yeah.
just the ability to have that sovereignty with your data is a big deal. So what types of developments are you interested in right now? And then also in regards to what we do at Quai, uh, in these efforts, what do you see coming about? In light of all of this, be it entertainment or just data ownership, between the two, or for creatives. Uh,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of parts to that answer. So, number
yeah.
one, I really do believe that going forward, we have to create systems where, people can own their own data and it doesn't fall in the hands of a half a dozen, American oligarchs, whatever we want to call
Hmm.
them, which is, um, we've been moving in that direction. And I think we have to do everything we can to resist it
Yeah.
being there because that kind of world is not necessarily the kind of world I want to live in.
Yeah.
Um, but, in the entertainment world, there's been this great fear of AI is going to replace us and stuff, and people don't
Hmm.
realize that AI is essentially a tool.
Yeah.
Um, that when you learn how to use it, it's spectacular. And I give people, this example when Hollywood was on strike, had the Screen Actors Guild strike and the Writers Guild strike, and they were so worried about AI. And their reasoning was just silly. Um, it
Mm.
was, the Screen Actors Guild is like, oh, we got screwed in the Netflix deal, and I'm going, okay, you made a deal with Netflix for 10 years when Netflix was a little nothing, and then COVID came along and everybody had to watch Netflix, and that spawned Hulu and all these others, and so I said, don't do a 10-year deal, and second, you had no protections in there. You never anticipated Netflix growing big. I said the
Hmm.
one thing we could look at, we could, if we just stick with GBT for a second, You look at GBT when it came out, and then 8 months later, you look at GBT 4, and it was somebody said it's 800 times more powerful. I said, so why would you do a 10-year deal for something you have no idea? And anybody who tells you they know what AI is going to be in 10 years is
Right.
not really being honest with you. So I
No.
said, you either got to build guardrails into it so that if
Mm-hmm.
certain things happen, you get to renegotiate or the terms change or something. But you get to the good parts of it. I mean, if you were to say, Larry, could you develop a TV series format for me on spoons or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is? Um, by the time I did the research and wrote it up and said, what are the episodes and what's going to be the financial underpinning of it? It would take me 5 days to kind of turn out a very basic look at anything as a potential TV series.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I've been using GBT 4 forever. I mean GBT and GPT 4 forever,
Mm-hmm.
and literally I plug my stuff in 30 seconds. It spits it out for me, and it's never 100%. It
No.
needs me to sit down there, and it
Mm-hmm.
takes me an hour to edit and clean it up and whatever. I said, but now in 1 hour, I'm
Oh yeah.
getting done what used to take me 5 days. I said, how do you not love that? I
Oh.
mean, I could
Yeah.
either do a lot more of those and make more money,
Mm-hmm.
or but the most important thing is I've reclaimed 5 days of my life,
Oh
and we
yeah.
all have a limited amount of time on this planet here.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to regain that much time, I said I could spend more time with my grandkid. I could learn how to
Mm-hmm.
speak Spanish. I could go on a cruise. Um, there's got to be regulations and rules and laws in place that basically um, stop bad people from doing bad things
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
it, which we don't have because our legislatures, particularly here in this country, put their head in the sand and they
Mm-hmm.
think that if they just ignore it, it's going to go away. Well, it ain't going away.
No.
Um, all you got to do is go back and you look at, horse ranchers, back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They were appalled when somebody invented cars.
Oh yeah.
And,
Yeah, that was such a big
and
deal. Yeah, and they had people walk in front of those loud cars with flags behind them and in front of them to get everybody out of the way. And
yeah,
they even had to put fake horse heads on the cars so those cars wouldn't freak out other horses. Like, whoa, this
yeah,
thing isn't
and
neighing. Like,
I tell people, that the horse ranchers weren't happy. They wanted everybody to have a horse and buggy. I
mm-hmm,
said, but do me a favor, look out the window and tell me how many horse and buggies you see versus how many cars. I mean, it's inevitable that
mm-hmm,
technology is going to march forward, but we don't have any body of law or framework to stop bad people from or at least inhibit bad people from doing bad things. And
yeah,
the example I use, you take driving a car. I said a 12-year-old can't say, "Give me the keys. I want to go drive the car." Why? Because you're 12 years old. You got to be
mm-hmm,
a certain age. You had to take driver's education. You had to take a
yeah,
driver's test. And then there's rules of the road that if you don't obey the rules of the road, there are actually penalties for that.
mm-hmm.
And we don't have anything for AI now. We have
Yeah,
nothing that governs it, and we need that. I mean,
mm-hmm.
at least it's a deterrent where people know, hey, if I do something bad, I could suffer.
Right. Yeah, and it's so many different things too. It's security on different levels. It's again, it's amplifying a lot of the technology we've had to suffer with too for the last, 15, 20 years when it comes to spam or
Yeah,
robocalls or anything like that. And now with the onset of like, digital twins and people really able to create copies of other personalities. It's so limited though. It's like you said. I mean, you're still left with a lot. AI can help you get to the really important work. It
yeah,
could take like what you said. You take the 5 days and you boil it down to like 30 minutes of work, and you really look everything over. The time that you take there is for quality assurance to understand. Well, is it really making sense? Is this true?
yeah,
And then a lot of times we think, like you said, you get a lot of your time of your life back and your energy. And one of the things I do when I use it is to go the next level, the next steps. Is now I have time to look at the variations of that. It would take me a month to write out all these variations on something, but here I'm doing that Now, find a theme, find a strong point. What's my message? What's the underlying vibe here, you know? And then so it gives me the ability as a creative to truly work in what my best vision is. Could I take this up a notch? Because
Yeah.
for some of us, and I know this includes you, I don't like to settle for just great. I like to achieve excellence, you know, and with things that I create when I have time to do this, I put as much energy in as I can, and so AI is a great tool for that. You know, I had a lot of artist friends that were worried, you know, who didn't make movies or music, but were strictly visual artists, worrying
Yeah.
about AI, and you can almost tell when something's AI generated a lot of times. And when I ran some labs for MIT and my cohorts there, I would take and train the AI on my art and then have it reproduce a new piece of art in my style. And because I was the creator and all this, it was totally fine. It was ethical. I
Yeah.
gave it permission to, and it didn't take long to do that. But again, you know, it's a fraction of what a master's work would be. You look at Van Gogh or Klimt or anybody, and you get it to do something in their style. It's very close, but it lacks the true element. Every
Yeah.
once in a while, there's a wild fluke, and you're like, "Hey, computer, you did a really cool job making something new." But the human element is so important and cannot be removed. And even without AI, people do a great job of writing out the human element in some things. Okay, you know, so you have to be attentive. You have to be really, you know, in accord and with the, like I said, with the right intent of what you're doing
Yeah.
to get the most out of it. But I know, you know, you were mentioning like Will I Am. You know, my last guest on the show is a good friend of mine, and they're friends, and she does creative work with him, and we see all these musicians out there who are really embracing it, and different visual artists who are embracing it to do the next thing.
Yeah.
And you know, we'll sit back and say, well, you know, it's not quite human enough, and it's a little grainy or it's something. But a lot of people did have fears from the beginning. This could easily replace me, you know, but until you use it, you won't really be sure about how it could replace you or what's possible. In 10 years, that could change.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 year is like 10 years at this point, the way things are going, you know. So, but that's not the goal, you know, for creatives. We like the tool. And you said it, it's just another tool. You know, it does have a little bit more ability to automate and adapt, but it still takes a
Yeah.
lot of framework and a lot of shepherding and a lot of coding to make it do any one particular thing at this point. But I love that you use it to make your life easier and to stay organized. And for a lot of authors out there, it helps people explore, you know, again, variations of something.
Yeah.
But it's no replacement. You can take all the popular tools right now. You could take Sora, Midjourney, Dolly, Runway ML, Suno. There's a few others out there for music as well. But these all are great, but they still fall short. And so for me, I use this for drafting and understanding what I could write because I am a real musician and producer. I still use AI. It doesn't threaten me. It's great. You know, like people use pre-canned beats for things all the time. You know, we use elements of this and that and put it together, and it's incorporating the world around you. You know, I mean, it's like Dadaism. You know, that's a form of art. There's so many things to explore. I don't ever feel pigeonholed by the technology in any way. I don't feel like I have to do, oh, I should lean into my more high tech looking stuff. Or no, I lean into my natural work, my more human element work, and more heartfelt work using it. And so it's great coming from you, someone who really understands media, to hear. And I hope a lot of people take that to heart out there and really start using some of these tools as best they can because all of my artist friends who embraced it in the beginning were the same ones embracing video game technology, were the same ones creating, you know, from scratch videos with their art mapped onto objects. And some of these people are hand drawn artists. You know, that's how I started too. So to really be, you know, have a passion for your trade and that art, technology is just another tool.
Yeah.
And so I love hearing this from you. So let's see here. What else do we have? Your book, you know, just came out last month or so. Is that correct? Offscript.
It's 3 weeks old now.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, see how fast time flies? I thought it's been a month or so, and it's only been 3 weeks. So So I picked it up not but a week and a half ago here, but you really go into your upbringing and how things were for you. And I know your book isn't just about media. Hey, people, it's about cooking too. And being from New York, I think you know your stuff pretty well. But I just want to talk a little bit about this. You grew up having to kind of fend for yourself, and in a way where you were a latchkey kid,
Yeah.
And I remember you said you got tired of peanut butter sandwiches and decided you need to pick up a pan and turn the stove on. You want to tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah. Oh, mom and dad both worked. Yeah, my father drove a Pepsi Cola truck delivering cases of
Hmm.
soda to supermarkets. My mother worked in New York for Department of Social Services, and yeah, so my choice was, learn how to cook or eat peanut butter and jelly for dinner every night. And yeah, I started cooking and I liked it and stuff. So I started reading cookbooks and
Hmm.
starting to diversify. The things that I would cook. And then when I was in college, I ended up getting a job in the kitchen of a Chinese restaurant, and I would always ask them teach me how to cook. So I learned how to cook Chinese, and then I
Hmm.
worked in an Italian restaurant, so I learned how to cook Italian. But I've kind of stayed with it my whole life. I literally buy a cookbook every month
Oh
and
wow.
just like study the book
Uh huh.
um, and stuff. So I could cook just about anything now.
That's great. Yeah, it's a big deal down south. I'm from Alabama, so we like our spices and
Oh
things
yeah.
fried down there pretty well. So,
In New York, there are certain kind of foods that are better than California. And in California, sushi, Asian food,
hmm,
Mexican food is better in LA than is in New York.
yeah.
Um, but in New York, a lot what I call immigrant Italian food, red sauce Italian and baked
Uh huh.
clams and that kind of stuff, don't really exist out here. Um,
Hmm.
so I recreate a lot of New York things that I grew up on and love that I just don't find out here. So I have my own pizza oven. I make my own pizza, um,
Yeah.
and doing that. But I like New York and I like LA, and I go back and forth a lot
Hmm.
between the two. And so when I'm in New York, I'll do the Katz's Deli, and
Yeah.
eat, go into Brooklyn and have like real Italian food with red sauce all over it. And
Hmm.
in LA, I'd love, I probably eat sushi 3, 4 times a week, and I eat
Yeah.
Mexican food once a week, and
Hmm.
and stuff. So, I mean, both are good.
Do you have any big plans for traveling?
Yeah, I go back and forth to China, so I'll be
Uh-huh.
back in China, I think, in June,
Hmm.
and I try and go like every 3 months.
Yeah.
Um, you know, um, we have a partner in Beijing who runs the company quite well, so it's not like I need to be there like I did at the
Hmm.
beginning.
Yeah.
So I do that. I love Vietnam now,
Hmm.
which is odd considering, I was a kid who grew up with the Vietnam War and
Hmm.
that stuff. But Vietnam has become an amazing place.
Yeah.
So much fun, great restaurants, great people, great nightlife.
Yeah.
Um, so I do that, and but now that I got the book out, I'm starting to travel around the U.S. a little bit more than I was, and
Hmm.
doing book signings and book tours and
Oh yeah.
doing all that kind of stuff. Promoting a book is a lot harder than I thought it would be, but we're
Yeah.
doing it. But I mean, there's a great example with AI, because
Uh-huh.
people say to me, they go, Larry, people have been writing books all their lives, and you wrote a book, and in 3 days it became a bestseller. How do you do that? I did the entire marketing and social media campaign were done with AI,
Yeah.
and it just executed it. In literally 3 days, we
Uh-huh.
were a bestseller
Wow.
in 4 different categories, and
Yeah.
people are going, how did that happen? And I don't want to tell them that I used AI, but I did.
Yeah, it's you could say that all day and people would still not know what it was that you did with the AI.
Yeah,
That's the thing. It's like, oh, use AI. It's a fun answer to give people because it shrouds everything in mystery. Oh, I use technology, right?
yeah,
It's just-
yeah.
so it's really good because you have your special sauce in there, man. You have your recipes for doing this, even in that. I know I've built a lot of bots just to do very particular things, and it takes time and effort to hone your craft no
Yeah.
matter what tool you pick up. And so, that really impresses me as someone who codes and grew up with computers and being really into this. You automated some of these things, am I right? Like you used AI to not just write, but perhaps do posting for you. Or what did you?
Oh
How
yeah.
did you use it?
No,
I
no,
I'm
the
so
entire
proud of you,
social
sir.
media campaign was done with AI.
Uh huh.
I just plugged in the details and told them what voice I needed to speak in for what
Right.
audiences, and it
Mm-hmm.
created, things for people in media, things for entrepreneurs, things for
Yeah.
students, and so we
Mm-hmm.
just had this really diverse and broad-reaching, and then said which sites we should be posting on and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So it was just great. I mean, literally in one day, and I had to learn how to prompt it right, and
Oh
all,
yeah.
but literally took me one day to take what an ad agency would probably take 3 months to do.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And you have that ability to look at it all right there in a final say
Yeah,
and see that added up and then boil it down if you need to from there because it's such a wonderful tool to have. Like I run a lot of secure local AI on my home computer as well as use a lot of popular platforms for a variety of reasons,
yeah.
and I've had great luck with it. But so do you have? You're a GPT user. Most of us are. Do you use Claude? Have you tried the Claude models?
Yeah,
Or
I've tried that.
yeah,
I've used Mid-Journey. I
yeah.
use all of them.
Hmm.
A lot of them I try and realize they're not what they promote themselves to be. And
Yeah.
uh, but I probably use GPT-4. I think we're
Hmm.
getting close to GPT-5 now, if
That's
it's
right.
not out yet.
Hmm.
That's kind of my general everyday
Yeah.
use.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. Yeah. Yeah, and it takes a lot of work to get these things just right, and understanding your prompting because it's meant to sound very, confident.
Yeah,
And you really have to vet out what you do, even with a small amount of data, and you don't want it to misrepresent any small steps that are really crucial
yeah,
for certain things. So, yeah, that's great. Let's see. And a lot of the stuff that we're working with at Quai is related to closer to a digital twin, and you've been a
yeah,
part of enough meetings to see that. We have Bruce Schneier from Harvard University. He's a professor there with cryptography and security, cybersecurity, and he's been the word for so long. But even when we, approached making a Bruce bot, which is just a slight copy of him, he didn't want the uncanny valley involved. He wanted it to be very computerized, very much
right.
a like Kit from Knight Rider, just no avatar, just something kind of robotic, but load it up with a semester's worth of curriculum and have it to where it allows the students to talk to his virtual twin, about that and
Yeah,
help get guidance through working through problems. And I think that's a very good use of something like this, and we're seeing a lot more of this right now, especially with different companies that produce copies of, let's say, like I remember they had Einstein. I think it was like Character AI was a group, and they had popular, celebrity personalities and different people that you could interact with. But
yeah,
eventually, you hit the bedrock of all of this. There's a fine art to making it right. So, lending credence to your claims, AI is not going to take your job or take away the creative aspects or acting or anything else. It is still very limited, and even then lacks the contiguous, the continuity of expression, throughout itself.
yeah.
And so even if you say people like Jensen Wang are like, oh, people aren't going to need to code in the future. Why bother learning to code? That's dangerous because it's not a perfect coder. Even the coding models that are meant for developing software still have very limited scope of the larger, projects and things. And so again, it's if you only look at a small part of AI, you could feel threatened to like, oh wow, that really outdid my drum solo on something. Who cares? Or
Yeah.
composition. But really, at the end of the day, you're looking at something that is very partial and very much incomplete. Now, will that be different in 2 years? It will have improved, definitely.
Yeah.
But I still say that, like anything else, we have to be at the helm of these tools. You just embrace that, integrate yourself into using these tools now, because wherever you're at, it will boost you and get you further. Can help you do more than you would have been able to do before. Um, and I forget the name of this term, but it's basically people think that, oh, it'll replace me because of the limited scope of what we're doing and what we're used to. But jobs will change in a way that you will take on more ability, and responsibility, and AI will be there as that tool to help you do it. Um, but with a lot of talk about agents, agentic AI, again, the digital
Yeah.
twins, things like that. That's that's some gray area as it becomes more likely that, or more believable looking and more real. That is where we have to be careful. Like robocalls, someone
Oh yeah.
taking your voice, things like that. But at the same time, common sense helps us, parse through these things. I know that so and so isn't going to call me and say certain things. If I ask them a particular question, they can't answer it. I know it's not them,
Oh,
and
we
so
need to start taking all the good things that AI can do and have that protect us against these kind of things. I mean, we
Mhm.
could come up with AI programs that identify deepfakes,
Oh yeah,
um,
that's right.
and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's where we got to get to,
Hmm.
so that we put it to good use as opposed to just keep thinking of all the bad
Hmm.
things that could happen.
Right, right, exactly. I had come up with a product called Deep Fact. It
Yeah,
was one of my products I was developing when I was with MIT, and it was to prove the validity of the actual videos and frames and
yeah,
whatnot. So sort of like a watermarking, but not really the same. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, it's going to take some forward thinking with some of this. But as individuals become empowered, I think that the knowledge and the that insight will follow, because then we get the mileage with these tools. Hey, it's like you sit inside a car and you've been driving. We've all been driving our whole lives mostly. And you sit in a car and your body instantly activates the neural networks to drive a car. You put on your seatbelt, you look around, you're not even thinking about it. You're actually just turning on the radio, you're doing that.
absolutely. Yeah,
But that's the thing, is that we automate a certain amount of what we do, but still we're the drivers, right?
yeah,
And the point is to be a better driver along the way, not to give that up to be in the back seat. Like, I'm not really into the self-driving car thing. I'm not gonna
yeah.
lie. I like safety, but I
Yeah.
like driving, and I think that we can agree with that.
Yeah.
You probably still see a lot of good, great classic cars out there where you live.
Oh yeah.
Close to
Oh
the
yeah.
home of Shelby and people like that.
Yeah.
I don't know how far away you are from Venice Beach. One of my relatives lived out there and just
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah. 20 minutes.
Uh-huh. See, there you go. But
So
anyway, so let's see here. So, anything else you'd like to bring up about your book? Any tidbits you'd like to share with the audience here?
no, it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Ingram and stuff like
Uh-huh.
that. It's a quick read. It's a weekend read. It's not a heavy duty thing, but most people who read it, they end up emailing me or calling me and go, Larry, this can't be true. But everything in that book is 100% true, and it's actually a lot of the really crazy stuff I didn't put in the book because I knew nobody would believe those things.
Hmm. Right. That's best left for some of these interviews, right? Or
Yeah,
to embarrass your friends later. No, that's incredible, though. I, again, very inspired to read this, and was really shocked when you came into one of our meetings. I was like, "Are you kidding me, man? I grew up seeing your name on so much syndication." Okay, I'm
yeah,
47 now. All right, but you're a household name for me coming up and raised in the kind of family that I was. It was just a no
yeah.
brainer, and
Well,
I thought
good.
to myself, "Huh." Is that the Larry Namer in our meeting? And lo and behold, it was.
Yeah,
And ever since then, I've just been flabbergasted at how much ground we've gained and what we've been able to do. I came in a year ago to Quai and as a
yeah,
researcher and now a sponsor with this show, and
yeah,
so it's just been incredible though. And so, man, it tickles me to have someone so close to us that really gets it, really is in the heart of entertainment media, has fun, knows how to live, and knows how to connect people, man, and hearts and
sure.
across cultural boundaries, man. That's so important. Thank you so much, Larry. Again, everybody, this is Larry Namer. His new book, Offscript, is available. You can go to offscriptbook.com or Amazon or anywhere else. Just Google it and you'll find him. So, Larry, thank you so much for taking the time. Hope you have a wonderful day and see you all again soon.